All right. Open up our waiting room here. There we go. Got our folks coming in. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today again. We're looking forward to digging into a topic that is very near and dear to us here at FieldClock, and that's taking the guesswork out of labor. Before I get started, though, this is a live session, and we want to hear from everyone out there in the audience. So right there at the bottom of your screen is the Q&A button. So please join the conversation, provide your own perspective on any of these topics that we're going to be discussing, or just ask us a direct question. This session is for you. So I realize one of the questions that we get a lot is, are you recording this? Yes, I realize farmers and business owners are very busy, and if you need to jump early or you wanted a team member to join and they couldn't, no worries. We are recording this and I'll be sending it around as soon as it's done. Okay, so I heard on the news that Starbucks is releasing the pumpkin spice latte at the end of this month, which we all know means fall is just around the corner. And if you're like me and my family, that means a trip about an hour away to the huge pumpkin patch farm down in Orange County. Do some tractor rides and zoo visits, grab some pumpkins, all that fun stuff. But it got me thinking about the very unique challenges of running an agritourism farm. Because I grew up on a farm up in Northern California, a very traditional farm in that sense. And I know how crazy it can be to juggle all the various tasks during peak and non-peak seasons. I can't even imagine adding that additional layer of complexity by inviting customers onto the farm. So fortunately, I don't have to imagine it. I wanted to invite Ashley Reese here, our very own Ashley Reese from FieldClock, who has personal experience in that arena. Thanks, Ash. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here.
So let's just set the stage, right off the bat. I want to know, I guess first, how did you get involved with a U-pick orchard and what was your role?
Sure. Like many people, I married into it. And we live there, we work there, and it was the natural next step for me to become involved with the farm and on the farm.
Nice. And I guess walk me through, since we're going into peak season, walk me through like what does a typical day look like for you during peak season?
Absolutely. Well, just a funny antidote. You mentioned Starbucks and, fall, people coming on the farm, and I couldn't help but think I'd be out in the peach orchard right now, and inevitably someone would come up and they would ask when apples would be ready. And they would be asking when apples are going to be ready. And then finally we'd be in peak apple season, and then they'd be like, "Hey, where are your peaches?" So it's one of those things. I thought that was really funny. Um, uh, Typical day during peak season. Pick your own retail really has such interesting challenges. My day would start really
Yes.
early. I would need to make sure that I had my house handled, ready to go, everything good before I left for work. So typically I would leave the house anywhere between 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I'd get to the office, and that's where I would basically prepare anything that I needed. If I had a new employee coming in, I'd have to have their employee packets. I'd have to gather all of my documentation for the day. And by documentation, it'd be clipboards and spreadsheets, because when you have a pick your own operation, you have a lot of moving parts and pieces. So not
Yeah.
only are you responsible for the farm work, you're also responsible for your staff that you have to have come in to support all those additional customers on your farm. So, and on top of it, like many pick your own farms, because the season is so short and specific, you really rely on seasonal labor like teenagers, college students, retirees, and a lot of those individuals have specific needs. So you have any underage employees, they can only work a certain amount of time. You really need to make sure that they're documenting their breaks and how many hours they have. So I'd have all these spreadsheets, and on top of it, you have a lot of money moving with teenagers, and not funny, kind of funny. If you've worked with teenagers before, learning, teaching them how to count change and give it back. So you really need to make sure you know who is in what cashier booth, how long they're there. So if there are any major mistakes, you can kind of figure out who did it.
And
So
how did you guys track that labor?
Oh man, we tracked it with paper time cards. So everyone, regardless of their position, would come to the shop in the morning. They'd grab a paper time card, they'd fill it out, hopefully. And at the end of the day, or whenever they were taking their breaks, they would fill it out, hopefully. And we ran payroll once a week.
Hopefully.
So day started around 7. We closed the doors at 6 p.m. It would take us until anywhere 6:45 till 7 to get everyone out. And then by that point, I had so much back end paperwork capturing time, making sure that the registers looked right. It would take me till 8, 9 o'clock sometimes before I was able to get back to the house,
Starting at 7 a.m.
starting at 7 a.m. It's
That's
a it's a long 16 weeks.
so you mentioned seasonal workers. I mean, any challenges during busy weekends dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, so many, right? So you hopefully have reoccurring employees that come back that really can build on what they learned the previous year. But yeah, just moving all of your people around. Honestly, I think the biggest challenge, especially with your cashier staff, is making sure that everybody gets a break and gets a timely break. And we had upwards of 35 to 40 people that were just specifically for our cashier and checkout area. So by the time we finished our first round of morning breaks, we were just about ready to start taking afternoon breaks, which are a longer period of time. And then again, same thing. We finished afternoon breaks and you start again, and you'll have these ebb and flows of customers coming through. So you'll have we have, oh gosh, we had so many employees come or so many customers come in that you would have lines backing up and you'd have
Oh, I've
employees
been in
on their
those
rest
lines.
break and there's nothing you can do about it.
So you mentioned minors because that's an interesting wrinkle there too. I would imagine there's got to be certain compliance and restriction regulations. Like what were some of the biggest compliance or I guess just record keeping headaches that you had to face on the
Yeah,
farm?
absolutely. Very strict regarding breaks, making sure that they take a break within the certain, I think it's like 5 or 6 hours of the day, making sure that they have lunch breaks. And if there's any regulations regarding a protected class like minors, the record keeping needs to be very, very accurate, and you need to be able to pull it and really show, hey, look, I am aware that they're underage. This is how I'm providing these breaks. This is how I'm documenting it. So that really was a big challenge with minors, underage workers.
So when you say pull it, you're talking about literally like going into a file cabinet or a binder or something if somebody asks.
Great question. Actually, yeah. So we would have bins for because everything was pen and paper. So even our paychecks, we had hard copies of paychecks. Everything was a paper record. So we would compile all of our, let's say, 2024 records into a bin. And then we would put it into one of our storage barns. And we had bins and bins and bins of records. And I remember having to pull something one time for unemployment, and I had to go back into one of these bins and find my little rubber band time cards. And I was like, please have their hours on it. Because at the end of the week, sometimes you go to run their payroll and they didn't figure it out. And then you look at everybody else's time card and you're like, well, everybody else left at 4:30, so I'll just count them out as 4:30. But did they though? I don't know. So
And what about I would imagine you'd probably run into disputes here and there if somebody's like, no, 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 I actually was here until 5.
yeah. Absolutely, because your employees will they're fine not filling out information, but the second you underpay them, they will absolutely tell you, but you've already done it. Now you have to go back in and make these retroactive changes. But when you're going to run payroll and it's about to impact everybody getting their money, they won't respond to a text or let you know the hours that they worked. So a lot of times me, like many other farmers, we guesstimate, and it's almost always to the employee's advantage because you don't want to have to go back and make those changes.
No, absolutely not. And I'm sure in your head you're thinking, God, there's got to be a better way to do this. This is
Absolutely.
painful.
It's painful.
So what about, so that's just keeping track of the records. What about multiple roles in U-Pick farms, going from the cash register to the corn maze to the field. Like, how did having customers in the orchard impact managing all of these labor?
Well, I mean, if I had a better system, it would have been easier. It was challenging because you have everyone stationed where you need them to be or where you anticipate work to be done. So you have field work happening, you have tractor rides happening, you have cashiers, and you have your normal moving your employees around. But then what'll happen is something will happen in the parking lot, or let's even say there's a missing child or a missing parent. It's all hands on deck. So you need to kind of grab everybody and move them around where you need them. So that was challenging because you didn't have a great way of understanding where everyone was on the farm at one time. I roughly knew where my people were, but I couldn't tell you where more of my operators or my security were. Especially when we were busy, we really needed to move everybody to certain areas. And if you didn't know where they were, it's hard to get in touch with them and get them to the right spot.
And I would imagine different roles pay different rates. So if you're working in the
Oh,
cash register, you're probably making a different wage than if you're just monitoring the corn maze, for example. So on
yeah.
pen and paper, did you have to manage, okay, they were at the register from 11 to 12:30, and then they moved over here from 2 to 4.
That's a really great point, and it's one of the things that I was working on while I was still on the farm. So, one, you really need to understand where your labor expense is going and allocate it accordingly so that you truly understand where exactly you're spending that money and are you making really good decisions with your operation. If you don't have an easy way to allocate that labor expense, it's guesstimation. But more than that, it's important to understand where your people are and what they're doing, especially for your bottom line. When agritourism, retail operations, as soon as you have customers come onto your farm, you have a different level of liability. You have a different category of insurance that you have to carry on the farm because you're having people come in. And when you have that insurance, you have your workman's comp premiums and those codes. So now, yeah, I could say that all of these people are cashiers or all of these people are farm workers and pay that premium, based on those roles. But why would I want to do that if my farm labor codes, they're way more expensive than it would be if I had them classified with these other tasks that they are actually doing. But insurance companies won't be like, so you feel like they spent a few hours here and there. They
Yeah.
won't do it. They want to actually see how they're spending their time, the movement, and they want it accurate so that this way you can adjust those premiums, you can adjust those codes accordingly. And even more than that, there are specific states that have unique requirements, like New Jersey, for
Yep.
instance. So agricultural minimum wage is a thing in New Jersey, and a lot of farms do take advantage of it. And what that means is that I can, as they're moving the minimum wage up to $15 an hour, there's a carve out for agriculture, but it only applies to field work. It does not apply to cashiers. So not only do I want my premium to be accurate, I also, for compliance reasons, really need to make sure that when my employees are handling or are on the field and they're doing farm work, they're getting their specific rate. If they ever move and are doing other roles, that they're being paid appropriately, and we're staying within compliance.
So that's a lot of challenges, just going
Yes,
back
it's
to
not easy.
how all of these things are juggled. Let's fast forward now. Now here at FieldClock, now that you see the ins and outs of what a digitized system provides, I guess
Wow.
where do you see the biggest impact? Like which feature has saved you the most time or stress?
Honestly, simply having your employees clock in and clock out themselves means that your hard work, your calculations, the time that you spend having to say, okay, they got here at 7:53 and they left at 6:05 and figuring out breaks and having to do the math, that it's time consuming and it's not a great allocation of my time at all.
Yeah.
So simply by having my people clock in, clock out, and that's already summarized for me, which makes it easy to pay them, that is the biggest lift, I think, for me. this second and probably more important than my own personal time is allocating that labor expense accurately. At the end of the year, when you're doing a year-end review, where did our labor expense go? How did we spend it? Did we set our prices the way we should have? Did we lose any money? Could we be doing better? How do we manage the farm more effectively? And when I go to break apart my labor expense, like, yeah, it's kind of easy to do when it comes to cashiers and field work during peak season, but we have our highest paid employees the rest of the year working between apples and peaches and doing various different tasks. So I really would like to have an accurate picture of how much time and how much of my labor expense went to one crop versus another, so that when we're either planting a new orchard or pulling something out, we can make that decision without any feelings. We're looking at the data and strictly making the decision based on that.
If you had to guess, if you had a digitized system back then when you were on the orchard, would you have gone home at 9 or 10 p.m.?
No, I certainly would have gone home a lot earlier. I would have been able to take some time, because there are times where I could have stepped away, but those quiet times where we didn't have as many customers on the farm, I was just inundated with back end paperwork where I could have been hanging out with my kids or doing something. They had the summer off, and it's challenging not to be able to spend that quality time with them, and it really would have been able to help.
What about planning for peak season? Did you guys have a meeting where you sat down and looked at data from the year before, or how did you guys develop the
Yeah.
strategy for the upcoming season?
Well, that's it. So we did look at data, and by data I mean Excel spreadsheets. So like I would have to pull out like 15 different things to get a solid picture of my operation. So I'd have to pull out the calendar from last year to figure out when all of the holidays were. I'd have to look at the calendar from this year to anticipate when they're going to come up. I'd have to look at roughly our pay, and all of a sudden, when did I add employees? Okay, so we added them at this point. What were there any details that made us push back labor or start sooner, right? Because not only are you looking at your big picture and your planning, but you're like, okay, I need to have labor for thinning on this date. So that means I need to start finding labor a month or 2 months earlier, right? And you're just constantly trying to prepare the best you can without having really meaningful data. And it's funny because I work within FieldClock now, and I look at all these different tools available. I'm like, man, I could have added holidays in here, and I could have done this, and I could have done this, and I could have just pulled this information really, really quickly. I would have been able to figure out how many employees I needed way easier.
And I bet you could have moved them around weekly, looking at the previous week's data to say, oh, guess what? We had way too many people over in this section. Let's try moving 20% of you over here.
Oh man, I'll tell you, if I had, with kids having cell phones, and like if I had a limited resources, man, I tell you, I would have had a little device in each of my cashier booths, simply just to have whoever was working in there clock in and out from each of the booths, so that I know if money was missing or a big mistake happened, I would be able to pinpoint who it is and really be able to focus in on that training piece with them. There's so many things that we could have done.
So let's go back to when you first started, because you're talking about a lot of complicated paper tracking processes, storing documents, pulling information where you need it, compliance records, all of these things that you had to manage. When you first stepped into your role at the orchard, I guess what was the biggest challenge in learning that operation from your predecessor?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that we've been talking a lot about here as well.
Yep.
So I learned from my predecessor. So my predecessor let us know that she was going to be retiring, and she was going to give us one more year. And
That's
we
good. At least she gave you a
and
year.
it was, but and not every farm gets that.
Not every farm gets that.
She had such institutional knowledge. She knew intimately when to start hiring, when to start doing specific tasks, even specific like compliance records for like burn permits or whatever it is. She just knew intuitively. And she didn't have anything documented, and it was all in her head. And granted, she was amazing, but for someone coming in, I really like to learn by doing. I do ask a lot of questions, but I also like to self-serve too. So if there was a place where I could go and I could look and I can find things, I would have liked it. So it was just hard to pull information from her and memorialize it in a way that could be repeated. And that was very challenging because my tools were limited at that time. I was unaware of what was out there for me. So I was really relying on Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets and just, all things to try to, with little stickies on my calendar that I would move from year to year just to make sure that I did what needed to be done when it needed to be done.
So what do you think a system like FieldClock could do? How could that impact reducing that learning curve?
Not only would it reduce the learning curve because you would have a place to go and show. So if I'm passing down this knowledge to someone else, I'm going to bring them into FieldClock and I'm going to show them FieldClock, and then I'm going to show them how to use it to be able to pull the information that they need. Okay, look, this is how we classify things. This is how you can see when we've started doing this specific task. We know when this specific task starts, we need to have started looking for labor this far in advance. So there's just different tools that we could have surrounded FieldClock with, right? And used it as a way to teach, to train, and then also so that this knowledge it's not all in one person's head anymore. It's in a system that is easy to access from everyone who's granted permission to use it. So your administrators, so everyone has access. I could have had some of my other supervisors had access to this so that they can run reports on their own. They could have run reports for field workers or management or job costing and allocation. We could have used it for budgeting purposes if we wanted to plant a new field or whatever we needed. So it could have been used by the entire team to make better decisions and forecast more accurately.
Did you guys ever lose records?
I mean, I don't want to say yes, but I definitely, but I can't be honest if I said anything other than that. Yeah, I wouldn't say we lost anything. I'd say that you misplaced it. And
Yep.
honestly, one of the things that I know firsthand too is during an audit, when anybody comes out, it doesn't matter how prepared you are, it's so nerve-wracking. And I would have really appreciated having FieldClock to be able to pull records quickly and easily without like looking through a bin of information and trying to find the bin and hoping that things are filled out. So honestly, just really making sure that everything was in a place where you can easily access it would have been super helpful.
So we're on a live session here. I want to transition into some advice. So you've seen both sides of the coin here. What lesson did you learn working at the orchard that you want other U-pick growers to know here?
And that's a good one. That's a tough question. Um, I think one of the things that we don't realize, because you're working day in and day out, and you go to your farm bureau county meetings and all of a sudden there's a new regulation that comes out and everybody is up in arms and like all upset and like, how are we going to do this? And it's like, but that happens all the time. And I don't think we realize just how much the world is changing around us, and because it's such a gradual thing, and then all of a sudden during season you are so bogged down with so many things that are now your responsibility. Agriculture is so unique, farming is so unique. Add the extra layer of agriculture, you have so many rules and regulations and they're constantly changing, and most of us are doing the best that we can. So you all of a sudden I feel super stressed out and I have all these things to do, and there are tools out there to be able to relieve that burden. And if any of you are feeling like that, if you are bogged down with compliance records, with things to do that are not directly related to farming, there are tools exactly like FieldClock that are going to not only relieve that burden for you personally, but are actually going to make your team way more effective. And
And change is hard, you know, especially when you're talking about technology. People, it has a stigma to it. So I guess, is there a time when you were working at the UPIC where you had to incorporate some kind of new tech or big change in your process? Walk us through that. Was that a tough one?
absolutely, absolutely. So when I first started, we were cash only.
Okay.
And we were cash only. So now add more time at the end of the
That's,
day,
yeah.
right? And I wanted credit card machines for years. And it's kind of funny because you're like, how do I get a credit card machine to work out in the field where maybe you don't have great cell reception? Sound familiar? Right? So, but COVID changed everything. So all of a sudden, whether you wanted it or not, you needed contactless payment. And
Yeah.
I couldn't be more excited because now there was no excuse for anybody. It was a regulation and I used it to my advantage. And we pulled these credit card machines onto the farm and nobody looked back. Yes, it was a little bit nerve-wracking that the first couple weeks, but then all of a sudden you started to see the data come in and people started spending more money because
Hmm.
instead of coming up to the scale and being like, what are we going to do with all these apples because they don't have any cash, they just hand you their credit card and it's an easier exchange. It's an easier way to do things. And honestly, we never looked back. And one of the things that I think about all the time with that is if we hadn't been forced to do it, how long would we have continued doing what we were doing because it worked?
Worked.
So, yeah.
And was there any pushback when you guys implemented that system, or was, oh, I guess you couldn't really have any pushback if it's a compliance at that point.
Yeah, I mean, people could still pay cash, right? So the
True.
people that wanted to pay cash, paid cash. But honestly, we had such great feedback from our customers because, they've wanted it forever. And it was just an easier thing for them. It was peace of mind that they can come and if they forgot to get cash, they didn't need it. And even, for years there was some pushback internally about doing it. And again, it's the fear of the unknown. And can you promise me that this is going to work? And it's like, you're not going to know until you try it. But everyone can promise you the world, but you're not going to know until you try it. And I'll tell you, a lot of times when you try something like that, it really does work.
Yeah, and similar to labor tracking, once you digitize the money coming in and out, I bet it was easier for you guys to see all of those payments down to the cent as opposed to just a little bit of cash here, a little bit of cash there. The leakage that comes from that, I'm sure, has got to be much more controlled.
Not only that, but if you think about it in terms of labor tracking, you can also see what they're actually spending their money on way more easily. So now I have a digitized way to break out all of my costs or all of the income into various buckets. So now that I can break apart my income into apples and peaches and the other things that we were selling, we wanted to really compare that with the cost of labor. Hence, are we charging enough for this? Are we selling the right things? Are we spending our time in the right area? And that was the piece that I didn't have. I couldn't put it all together in a way that I wasn't guesstimating.
Did that ever cause you guys to buy more or less of specific products that you were selling?
Uh, not more or less of the products that we were actually, yes, it did. We were able to make better decisions for things that we purchased and resold on the farm. However, it would have helped us had we had something like this when it came time um, uh, uh, to plant more peaches or apples, right? That's really where all of the feelings were involved. And we really weren't doing well with our peaches because you weren't able to charge enough to be able to recover the costs. And even if I could have just proved that without a doubt, there are things that we could have done, even if we wanted to keep the peaches on the farm. We could have brought in a tree shaker, or we could have brought in something else to help mechanize or reduce the cost of labor so that this way we would have, we would possibly make money off of it the next season.
Awesome. I want to be mindful of time here because we do have some questions on our panel that I want to get to. So I guess a couple of final questions here. If you had to go back all the way back to your U-Pick days and just change one thing about how you ran labor and payroll, what would that be?
God, just everything. I would change everything. I would change everything. I would digitize the entire process. I would have a kiosk app in my shop for people coming in there, clocking themselves in. I'd give my main employees, my operators, I'd put the mobile app on their phones. I'd have them be responsible for their own time and have them allocate their hours effectively as well. And honestly, just capturing time would have made all of the difference.
And you speak to farmers literally daily in your role here. So what advice would you give to growers just considering a digitized system like FieldClock for their operation?
Well, I want to tell you to try it, and I want to be very mindful. I understand the decision making process. I understand the fear of technology. I understand like the fear that your team might not be able to use it. But I'm here to say that technology has come so far. You're not going to lose any of your data. You're not going to make a mistake that's so big that we can't fix it. And more than that, FieldClock is I love FieldClock. I am an absolute diehard because I'm a diehard Farm Bureau fanatic as well. And part of the building of the relationship and that partnership between the two is because FieldClock is so mindful of our family farms and the cost of critical tools like this. And we are priced so that you can try something that is going to change your operation and just make you way more efficient with such a minimal expense. It's honestly it's a no-brainer, and it's one of those things that once our farmers actually start using it, they're like, I get it now. I understand why I needed this. And we're positioned in a way where we'd love for you just to try it. There's no commitment to it. And honestly, there are people on your team that really need this.
That's the biggest thing. You don't know what you don't know. And when you start implementing a new system, just like with the credit card machines, you start realizing, oh man, I could have been doing it this way and using this type of a system for years.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple of people here. Let me pull up our Q&A. Okay, and thank you folks for submitting questions here. First one, Olivia. So she's asking, we have a very large farm in terms of acreage, and there's dead spots in some of there. So what if the Wi-Fi drops out in the orchard? Does FieldClock store these things offline?
Great question. Unlike the credit card machines on the farm, FieldClock works offline, and I love it because you can continue to capture time in, time out, production, whatever it is that you're capturing, you can continue to work with our app. And as soon as that device reaches connectivity, whether it's Wi-Fi or cellular reception, it's going to auto sync, which again, if you're thinking back to how you're capturing time right now, did they remember to upload something? Did they remember to fill out their time card? There's no more remembering or work after work, because as soon as that device is back in connectivity, we're automatically just going to pull that information with no thought involved. So yes, we do work well in rural areas.
Love it. Let's see. Hannah's asking, is there a way to restrict certain users from editing their own hours after clock out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. FieldClock is tailored to your farm, your needs. So you can certainly grant permissions in a way that's meaningful to you. So you can have supervisors see specific people or not have access at all. Whatever your needs are, we're going to be able to help you manage that and keep your information safe.
Awesome. Absolutely. That's one of the easiest parts. Aaron is asking, does the system integrate with QuickBooks Payroll, or would we have to re-enter the hours manually? Ooh.
Um, So I mean, that's a little bit more of a complicated answer, and it's not from us, it's really on the QuickBooks side. Yes, if you're paying your employees hourly straight time, there are ways where we can give you the file that you need through Web Connector. Did you say online or desktop?
He just put in QuickBooks payroll. I don't think didn't
Okay.
specify. Aaron, if you
There's a
can
little bit
put
of a
it.
nuance to it, but
Okay.
either way, we're able to provide that. If you have your own unique needs or things outside of it, we can certainly walk through it. But yeah, ultimately, FieldClock works with over 3 dozen payroll systems, QuickBooks included. What we do is we create a file export that you can upload into your payroll system, so it reduces any manual entry or human errors on that level as well. Minimally, if your payroll system doesn't accept uploads, we'll still give you a really, really easy to view and manipulate breakdown of all your employees' hours so that it makes that burden way less.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of his question. Having to re-enter things manually, no, you don't have to do that with
Yeah.
FieldClock.
The goal is to eliminate that process entirely. And
Exactly.
if you're using QuickBooks, please reach out to me and get a quote for our payroll. We have payroll powered by ADP that's right in one place, and it is specifically geared towards small farms. So our price point is way less than QuickBooks. It's right in the same place, and you can still use QuickBooks for all your accounting, general ledgers, all of those things. But definitely let us know, and it's something that we can help out and make easier for you.
And Aaron, I put Ashley's email address right into chat.
Awesome.
Let's see. Jennifer is asking if one is starting from paper going to FieldClock, can payroll be processed easily?
One more time.
If someone is going from paper to FieldClock, can your payroll be processed easily? I mean, much more easily than paper, yes.
Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely. So if you're handling payroll on your own and you're doing all that, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a big lift for you because now you have all of your payouts. So if you're handling payroll on your own, imagine having a list of all your employees, the total hours they worked and their total payout. Not only that, but we can also create general ledger entries for you that you can use for your own accounting system as well. So yeah, absolutely. It's gonna save a whole lot of time if you're doing things with pen and paper and paying them.
And Jennifer, in chat, I just put our website in the chat there because it has one of my favorite quotes from one of our customers. He said their bookkeeper went from spending 20 hours doing payroll down to 2 hours during harvest.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's one farmer, but yes, the impact is very noticeable. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean when I was running payroll too, again, from paper to that summary, that's where my time was spent. It was okay, adding everything up, making sure the breaks were in. That was the time consuming process. It would give me a report. If I just had a report that had all of this stuff already done and I could just quickly go down through 95 employees and be like 40 hours, 29 hours, 3 hours, that would have been amazing just on its own.
Yep. Jennifer followed up. She said, everything now is done by paper, hoping to transfer. Yeah, if you're doing
Give me a
everything by
call.
paper, you are going to see a massive difference here.
Even if you're just nosy about it, there's no pressure for me. I love talking about farming in your operation. I can show you all of our system. Please reach out.
One more question here from Lily. So she's saying, we pay different rates for field work versus retail sales. Can employees switch their pay rates mid-shift without logging out?
100%. That's exactly that. Like when you go back to my workman's comp premium example, yes. And this isn't a joke, but it's kind of funny. If we're able to handle the craziness and the gymnastics of piecework break pay in California and those crazy things, we can accomplish all of that. So yes, it's very easy for your employees to go from one task with one pay rate to another task with a different pay rate. And FieldClock is going to put all of that together without you even having to think about it.
Absolutely. One more. Sorry, I thought that was our last one. Grace is saying a little over half of our staff speak mostly Spanish. Does the mobile app support multiple languages right out of the box?
Sure does. So we're app based, and our apps, if your device is in English, our app is in English. If your device is in Spanish, our app is in Spanish. And a lot of our clients love this because, a lot of their field workers sometimes speak Spanish, but the office workers don't. And because we're using a system that's universal, it allows the information sharing to be completely transparent and for everybody to be working in a language that's comfortable for them without anything getting lost in translation. So not only is our app in Spanish, but our support staff is US based. They're also bilingual. So if you're giving this app to one of your Spanish speaking employees who works in the field, we also want you to give them our support contact number so they can contact them directly. So instead of them having to stop what they're doing, call you, them telling you what's happening, you're trying to reiterate the problem to us, simply just have them call us and we can be like, oh, sure, that's really easy, obviously in Spanish, and tell them how to make that simple adjustment.
Absolutely. Oh, one more. Sorry, we keep getting ones coming in here. Lily is saying that, oh no, we just got Lily. Sorry, the next one. Natalie. Natalie is asking, what does pricing look like for a farm that sees heavy traffic only 4 months out of the year?
Yeah, I mean, without knowing any other variables, um, I'm I'm gonna guess that if you're that seasonal, most likely you are ineligible for our family plan. Our family plan is meant for you can have up to 10 employees for $50 a month. If you go past that, it's $10 per employee just for those specific peak months, so that this way that expense goes down during your off season while still allowing you to capture labor off season and allocate it appropriately. And if you're one of our Farm Bureau members in one of our Farm Bureau states, instead of it being $50 a month, it'll actually be 40.
We do love our friends at Farm Bureau.
We love that so much.
That was it for our questions. Thank you everyone for submitting. And Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time. I know just the wealth of knowledge that you have from this specific niche of farms was something that we really wanted to dive into, and we were glad to do it.
Thank you. And I'd love to be a resource too. So whether it's FieldClock or just questions in general, I'm here to help. FieldClock is here to help, to be a resource. So please reach out. That's what the agricultural community is all about. We're here for each other and I want to be a part of that. So please reach out if you need me.
And I put Ashley's email address right in the chat there. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, I will be sending a full recording out to all of you by the end of this week.
And hey, Warren Williams, I see you.
Oh, yeah, nice. Hey, Warren. If anybody here has to deal with H2A specific labor, we did a fantastic session with Warren. As soon as this webinar ends, you're going to go straight to our webinar library. It should be right up there for you. So, yeah, check it out. Thanks again,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.